So man, this is one of the interviews I've been waiting to get to, man. This guy, I've been listening to him on airwaves since I was a youngster. Before I got into the game, I used to listen to this guy on WKNR, and I used to hear him on every single show. And the great thing about it was I used to hear this guy give some of the host business. He'd come in with his notes. He'd come in with his note and pad, and I'm like, oh man, this guy's on. He's giving them the business. He had classics with Greg Brendan. He had classics with him going back and forth. Him and he used to do it back and forth with Riz. He obviously with BSK, Ken Silverstein. The list goes on and on and on. Man, this guy, man, it's a pleasure to be able to get in front of him and talk to him about his experience and what I call the heyday of sports talk radio in Cleveland. My man, Hiram, how you doing, man? In the building with Hiram. What's going on, my G?
Hey, man, I'm hanging in there. How about you?
Hey, man, I'm doing good, man. Listen, man, you're doing, hey, I want to say this, and I want to give you your flowers, too. I'll give you your flowers now, man. You done gave so many people the business, man. I used to think, man, was you really studying the game? Because I used to think Hiram's doing his own shows at the house. Was you just really into it like that, or was you really doing shows, or did you ever think about going into sports talk or going into radio back in the day?
Well, I'll answer it like this. I look at it from the standpoint that if you're going to get behind the mic and say some of the things you need to say, you're influencing other people. And when you're influencing other people, some of the stuff that you say is wrong. It's flat out wrong. Or you need another perspective. And I think I got spoiled with I'll get into it later, but the person who had the biggest influence on me in sports talk spoiled me in the sense that if you're going to get behind that mic, you got to know what the hell you talking about, man. You got to talk it and you got to walk it. I mean, there's no shame in being wrong, but there's some shame when you get behind that mic and you don't know what you talk about and you just saying wrong stuff and influencing people and they go out and spilling wrong stuff. That's a reflection on you. And that's a reflection that you probably just showing up and you're not doing any research. You don't know what the hell you're talking. You're just showing up to work to get a check. And that's the way I see it. So if you're gonna say something, I need to get that if you're gonna say something wrong. Now, I did at one point in time say, I don't want to do a full-time show, but I wouldn't mind sitting in for one day or something like that and, doing a show like that. But I wouldn't want to do it full-time, but, doing it one day at a time, every other, just, as a substitute once or twice, that's fine. But I like, if you just got to know what you're talking about and that's what I appreciated about the old dudes. They did their homework and they knew what the hell it was no longer, let me just say something stupid and then and get people to call in. And I don't know what to say, just to see if I can get, ratings and stuff like that. You needed to know sports talk.
And in the heyday, in the heyday, which you're referring to, for me, I would say the heyday when I was thinking about sports talk. One of the heydays in which I'm thinking of. I'm 39 years old. I remember listening to sports talk. I remember I was heavy into it. Probably I started really listening to it with my father around 87, 88 heavy, like, first started listening, 1100 and then it was, 1220 and then, the old, the Cindelars and those guys. And then we moved into the early 90s, and then, back then K&R had it locked up.
Yeah.
They had it, and I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna listen. I tell you what, they had a vice grip on it, man. They had it moving, and it started with my dude BSK because he was the first to, just as an African American, he was a guy who he had the swag with it because he would talk it. But the thing that you said is the knowledge base. You know, when it came to the whether or not you was talking about, and you didn't want to touch him when it came to that football stuff. When it came to talking about that draft and pulling players, no, you had to have it. And he would let you talk. He would let you talk enough to hang yourself with enough rope. And then he undress you with the knowledge. He'd be like, oh, BSK done got him again. What was the difference? What was the difference back then in the way the game was working compared to the way it is now, you would say?
I think the problem is that I don't know your industry that well, okay? I'll say it like this. It seems to me that it's no more professionalism in the industry. It's more or less, I don't want to pay guys, it seems this way to me. I don't want to pay guys the salary they deserve for their professionalism. So we're going to get rid of them and get some guys off the street who really don't know what the hell they're talking about, who can say something stupid and get on and so we can get ratings and get our money. That's what it seems like to me. I mean, some of the things that these guys say, like, and I'm not critical, I'm just showing them as an example. This is just an example. And I talked to Anthony Lima. We met before. We met a bunch of times and we talked. We met down at Brown. That's my dude. I love Anthony Lima on a personal level. Okay. But when you sit up there and you tell me Terry Rozier, this is just an example. Terry Rozier is a better player than Colin Sexton. I mean, something is wrong with you. It's just an example. I mean, BSK and Sindelar, Drennan, and Les, they would never say anything like this. They'd be like, well, he might turn into this or blah, blah, blah. There's no way at 22 years old, this guy is better. He's 5-6 years younger, much better player. And you telling me, you gaslight me like I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I mean, saying the whole point is they didn't say just something stupid. When they said something, they meant it. Okay, I did my research on this. This is what it's going to be. This is what I see. If you disagree, let's talk about it. But don't sit up there and gaslight me.
Do you think, I remember, and maybe this is kind of crazy, or maybe you saw the same thing. I remember when Jim Rome came out. Mm-hmm. When Jim Rome came out, it seemed like it just changed the whole landscape, because Jim Rome used to say stuff, and I remember it kind of swept everywhere. It was like, Jim Rome was the take guy. Yes. And it was like, what, I didn't know what a take was. I was like, what does that really mean? I agree. And he used to say things, and it would be like, I mean, does he really believe that? Or no one can believe that. Do you think there's that brought in a wave of you have to be polarizing to be in this industry?
That's a good point. I didn't think about it that way. I didn't know what the take was either. And, when you listen to his show, it was more or less, forget the content of what you're saying, it's how you say it. I mean, it didn't seem like content really mattered. It just said, well, if you rhymes and it sounds good, then okay, rack that take or whatever. The content was, well, in my opinion, not very smart. But I think you're right, because I remember it was a big wave of Jim Rome. I mean, they used to make a big deal of him coming to town.
And he used to do
everything.
It was almost like the big time wrestling. It was the big time wrestling of sports talk.
Exactly.
Back when in the early 90s, when I would call it the golden era of sports talk in a lot of different places. I remember you had people, yourself, Bostonian is another one of those guys that there were personalities that were regular callers. How did that kind of come to play? How did that happen? Did you ever notice that you were a guy that was a guy that was a personality that people knew you? Because I lived all the way in Canton, and I was like, everybody knew who Hiram was a little bit. Like, and I was in the outskirts of the Cleveland metro area.
I noticed it after some years, but that wasn't my goal. It never entered my mind to be a personality. I don't even care about that. I wanted to. I'm like, dude. And the guy who used to get my ire up the most was Kenny Rhoda. I'm like, dude.
I was going to mention Kenny the Road Man. I was going to. You guys used to have. Because do you remember having specific epic battles? Do you think some of the hosts took offense to the fact that they thought you had a name?
Yes, it was mostly with Rhoda when he was talking about Tim. I mean, that wasn't the early 90s. I think Rhoda started off as Professor Sindelar, Jeff Sindelar's like program guy. I mean, you know, taking the phones and stuff like that. And he got his own show, and I mean, he used to say, Manny Ramirez. I mean, it was one year where Manny Ramirez he averaged an RBI per game, and he said that he shouldn't be a candidate for MVP. I'm like, huh? What? I'm like, what? I mean, you're talking about 162 RBI pays, and he shouldn't be a candidate for MVP? I mean, it was stuff like that. I mean, you were like, huh? I mean, but it was those kind of battles and stuff like that. And the unfortunate part for me was one of the people he grew to dislike me was Brenda. Brenda hated me.
Yeah.
Brenda, he hated. He still hates me. I don't know why. I ain't do anything to him, but I mean, that was the only one that disliked me. And the only one we have around that's back from the day is Bruce Drennan. That's the only one around anymore.
Right. And yes, that is correct. Kenny Rhoda is down at 1480 WHBC.
Yes.
And Drennan is doing the post game shows now. And so, you know, I think it's one of those things where you really do get sometimes the host can say, wow, you know, this guy he has a name for himself. It can kind of gas you up to just be like, am I supposed to be contentious with this person or not? And instead of just having, you know, the conversation and to talk about what the topic is, it kind of turns into this kind of thing. Do you think when you talk about the game now, how has Twitter, and you talked about it, how has Twitter kind of changed your thought process on you know, the call-in format of the shows? You know, do you feel like you can just your ideas are easier to get over on Twitter rather than doing what you need to do in calling shows?
Absolutely. You can instantaneously get on there and express your ideas and get feedback from a whole variety of people. The problem is with sports talk now is the quality of the host has gone down so bad that it makes it even. You got Twitter on one end, that's one battle, but the quality of the host is so bad that you don't even want to bother. I mean, what did you just say? It is so ridiculous, and it's obvious on why you're saying ridiculous stuff that you just want somebody to call in to you know, and you just take the heat for it so you can get ratings and get money. I mean, and I'm not faulting you for that, but that's not my style. If you're gonna have a sport, if I'm doing a sports talk show, I'm gonna know what the hell I'm talking about, and I'm not gonna make a fool out of myself just to get some money, you know, just to make a fool out of myself like that. I'm gonna have some good, and I'm gonna research, and I'm going to understand what I'm talking about, and not just say something stupid so somebody can call in.
What do you think? You know, so what do you think the disconnect is? Because here's the thing. I will say this to myself. You know, when I first started, there was a thing that was inside where, you know, to this day, It happens a lot. Even when I watch, I guess I watch and listen to the national media, or I watch national shows,
right?
And it dawns on some of them are okay, some of them
Right.
are good,
right?
But then there's a 40% clip, and you're like, why would you even say that? How did you get there? Like, how did you get to that point? At what point do you think it switched and it hit, and you're just like, they started letting people like that into the game, and they thought that's what they needed?
2005, 2006. I think when 2004, when they got rid of everybody at KNR, and when they had that big sweep and got rid of BSK, initially they got rid of Brenda, they got rid of Rich Passon, they got rid of a whole bunch of people. KNR and the new company went in there, and I'm not criticizing anybody, but excuse me for saying it went to hell after that. 2004, when they got rid of all those guys, and the new company came and bought those guys out, and then they started doing that. Well, you call in, and after 10 seconds, you got to cut them off.
So let's talk about that. So let's talk about that. I think that's a great segue. One of the things I enjoy the most about sports talk radio is the interaction between the fans and the host. And the thing that I enjoy most about it is this: if you have great interaction and you have great fans that know what they're talking about, they can spawn and take your show in directions that you wouldn't think you would have, right? They can give you something, and you all of a sudden, boom, now your show is in another direction. You're like, wow, they gave me something. They gave me an energy. They gave me a spurt. They gave me something. Wow, now my show is on the road. Some people don't have, their ego won't let them be directed by somebody else. And they'll say, well, I want you to direct the show. I pay you to do the show. And you're saying, well, I know that. I'm the conductor, right? But sometimes even a pitcher and a catcher get in a disagreement, right? And the pitcher and the catcher can go back and forth. And sometimes you can wave a pitch off 3 or 4 times. And then you say, wow, I'm glad I went ahead and let him throw that curveball. That was dope. It worked out. When did you start to see that it was like, wow, it was like people started just not taking calls, not cutting people off. It was just like there was a disconnect between the hosts and the fans. When did that change for you?
2008. 2008. When I started, I think it was right before I got. It was before I understood Twitter and got on Twitter. 2008. I said, you know what? If you're gonna disrespect me like that, and I was around at KNR when the very first KNR show, sports show. I was around 1992. I think it was 1991. No, it was 91 and 92. I remember the very first time that KNR got on at its very first show. So I've been around for 16 years. And for you to disrespect me like that, after all these years of cutting me off after 5-10 seconds, and I got to hurry up and say what I need to do, you cut me off. I said, I don't need this anymore. I don't need it anymore. I'll go and do something else, and waiting around an hour, and so you can then cut me off. I go do something else. And then right after that, I think a year or two later, I got into Twitter, and I said, and then the quality of the sports talk went down. I said, you know what? I don't need this. This is just not my thing anymore. And it was like a double-edged sword. Twitter, and then your quality has gone down. I mean, and your quality, and then your disrespect of the callers who make up the show. Who needs it? And from my understanding, they're struggling ever since. That's what my understanding is. So, I mean, and I'm not begrudging. I don't know the business that well. But I do know quality sports talk, and you're not delivering quality sports talk. So I stopped calling.
You know, I think one of the things that you know, people, I think that there's a thing in everything. And I think when it comes to sport, and this is the thing that I started to hear, and I was alarmed by it. Even when they talk about callers, or they talk about a lot of different things, they'll talk about sports in general. There's this perception that less is more. We don't need that. We don't need no receivers. Less is more. we don't need 2 running backs. Less is more. We don't need callers. You're like, so you don't need nothing. Like, what do you talk? You don't know. You do need that. This is there's a reason you have to have these types of things. Do you think, what do you think? And the reason I ask these questions is because, you know, sports talk in sports always evolves, right? If you look at it, the quarantine has had a boom effect on podcasts. Everybody got a podcast.
Yes.
Everybody got one. Everybody named Mama got one. Durant got one, and players got one, and everybody, you put 2 guys together. So a non-sports guy and a sports guy got a podcast. What do you think the new what do you think sports is going in terms of, you know, where is, you know, is radio something that is a dinosaur? Do they have to bring cameras into the studio? What's next in your thought process as a person who consumes sports and has done it for a long period of time?
I think what you're doing is where it's going. I mean, I think exactly what you do. People are not, you know, don't have you got something specific that you want to get off your chest, or have a topic about, or talk about. I think you bringing it to your home or to your studio or whatever, and you're not obligated to by certain things and certain people and all that stuff. I think this is where it's going if you really want to get quality sports talk, because you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can podcast this, you can podcast that, and quite frankly, the investment in the product on the radio is just not there. I mean, like I said, GB, excuse me. It seems like they're just getting people off the street just to say this, just say stupid stuff. I mean, I can't believe some of the stuff that I hear already, and it's just not worth it anymore. I mean, I mean, people ask me, well, where have you been? They ask my family members, where's Hiram now? He don't call there anymore. And I tell them, look, you can catch me on Twitter. Let's catch me on Twitter or something like that, man. But I think radio, unless they change, to answer your question, I think what you're doing is where it's at. Podcasting will be around. The problem with podcasting is, and I was listening to Ray Guy and Rhoda the other day podcast. Mm-hmm. The only problem with podcasting is you need that other perspective. You can't call in. I mean, you can't. I mean, it's frustrating. Me and Andre not go back 20 some odd years. It's frustrating listening to him and Jackson on their podcast, because sometimes you need that other perspective. 2 guys who agree all the time. No, you're like, okay, you gotta have that other perspective.
You can't. See for me, that's the difficult thing about podcasts. Yeah, when you doing a podcast is just like a love fest. When you're doing a love fest, I'd rather talk to people and say, all right, go. What you think about this? And I'd rather get your opinion and say so you can be unadulterated and unfiltered and tell me what you think. And then people can comment on whether they agree with it or not. See, but when you're doing a podcast, chances are the 2 people agree with it. That's the problem with doing sometimes 2-man. It's basically 2-man shows with sound, which is kind of tough. It's kind of tough.
But let me just tell you this. it can work beautifully if two guys put their ego aside and come from two different perspectives and have a good conversation. I know I see it this way. No, you see it that way, and have a logical and fair. I mean, that's beautiful sports talk, right?
Yes, but here's the thing. Here's what I found, and I'll tell you. Listen, Hiram, let me tell you about this. This is when I found the game was all messed up. When I found out the people be in the industry having these fake arguments, when I found out that they had fake takes, like one person gonna take one side and then you gonna take the other side, even though you don't believe that, I said, no. What is this? What kind of shenanigans is this? You mean to tell me this is big time wrestling? You don't believe? I said, yo, I looked at it totally. I was upset. I was totally upset. I said, hold on. I said, I'm never doing that. I am never in my life. If I don't believe what I said, I'm never doing that in my life. I said, y'all be doing that? Yeah, you could tell because one person to just jump off the roof just with no parachute. And he'd be like, where did that come from? And you weren't even mad 4 seconds ago. You was fine. Right. Mad now? I was like, no. When I found that out, it's crazy.
You can tell too when you listen. You can tell.
It's kind of crazy. Now I will say this. I want to get some of your takes, man, because I will say this. You got, as far as your takes go, you have some very unique takes on a lot of different things. And one of the unique takes that you got is on the Indians. Now, I will say this. When it comes to the Indians, and people you can't be truthful. There are very few people out there who can go toe-to-toe with you when it comes to the Indians and their prospects in their farm system. There's not, this is facts. I'm gonna let people know out there on Twitter in the world, if you feel like you're gonna be going back and forth with Hiram on prospects in the AA, single A farm system, you're gonna be up all night. This dude know all kind of guys in Class A, down in the Puerto Rico leagues. This guy, he got left-handers, right-handers, switch hitter guys, dudes that listen. He got third-tier prospects, top. He got it. Now, when it comes to the Indians, you are really bullish on the Indians. Like, you don't feel like the Indians is too far removed from getting back. Now, do you?
No, I do not. I think they have a very, very, very good baseball team. Mm-hmm. And this is where I expose a lot of. Well, let me just say, like, I'm gonna give you my philosophy on baseball.
Okay.
The reason a lot of people get things wrong on baseball these days is, one, they don't respect talented young players who are just looking for an opportunity. Mm-hmm. Their philosophy is, if you're not proven, you're suspect, and we can't say that you're good. But you got a ton of guys who aren't the top prospects, who are super duper talented, who just need an opportunity. And over the course of the long year, 162 games, some of these guys are going to get an opportunity. And they're going to prove that you're wrong. And then the so-called experts say, well, they surprised me. No, they weren't a surprise. They were always good. You just didn't give them an opportunity. Then you got that community too, is Sabermetrics says this. Sabermetrics says that. The computer system says this player is going to be good. If you really, really, really and truly understand baseball, Sabermetrics has a place in it, but you don't need it as much as you need it as a reference or just to get a little bit more insight. I don't need it to think for me. Mm-hmm. I need it. I understand, I had one, when I first started to understand this, I had a Sabermetrics guy tell me batting order doesn't matter. I said, what in the hell are you talking about?
Even I know that. Stop. Stop
I
playing,
mean,
bro.
you get different pitches in the top. I mean, the number 2 hitter gets a different pitch than the number 6 hitter, and he has to be have an entirely different skill set. He actually told me batting order doesn't matter. And this is a third thing. I can't think of it off the top of my head. One of the thing that people don't understand too is you got to have a farm system in baseball, because over the long year, you're going to have injuries, you're going to have slump, you're going to have trades, look, I'll give you a prime example. And the Indians are just like this. The only person that's holding them back is Tito Francona. Look at the Tampa Bay Rays.
Mm-hmm.
They have no money,
mm-hmm.
no fans.
Mm-hmm.
But they are kicking everybody's rear end on a regular basis because they understand I got a good team here, but my farm system is so loaded that during the course of the year, when you get weaker, when injuries start and you don't have any farm system, I'm going to get stronger when I get injured because I can call guys up just like that, and they all can ball, every last one of them. This is where they mess up.
Do you think when it comes to, you know, the Lindor or the Indians not, you know, signing their players, do you think it's a thing of messaging? Do you think the Indians are just bad at messaging? And other teams, like you said, the Rays are the same, you know, they're the same team. But they don't even have fans, right? They don't got fans, right. And they continuously do the same thing the Indians do, but they just are a little better at messaging. The Marlins are the same thing. They don't do, you know, they don't have that same fan. Do you think the Indians are just bad at messaging?
I think they're bad at messaging. I also think the fans haven't treated them as well as they should have. Now, you want a history lesson. When the Dolans bought the team, he inherited a team that was, you know, the early 2000s, a team that was old and getting older, and he inherited a team that was good, but the fans blamed him for breaking that team up. But that team it was too old. It wasn't good enough anymore. The fans to this day still blame them for breaking that team up. And the messaging that they've done over the years, the lack of money, and when they did buy the team, they admitted that we overspent for the team and we didn't spend any money for 5 years to try to recoup our money. It's been bad on both sides. Okay, and when you do get a contender, you got a team that's a World Series contender each and every year. You don't show up to the ballpark because you're still mad at the Dolans for not spending money. Excuse me for saying it like this. The hell with the money. You got a World Series contender here, man. You support this team. And stop being mad over this, you know, what he didn't spend. I had a guy on Twitter tell me if they traded 2 years ago, if they traded Lindor, they were going to have to rebuild. I said, God, you don't know what the hell, you simply don't know what the hell you're talking about.
I will say this. Somebody asked me this question the other day. I believe that the Indians by far will be way closer. I mean, they'll buy just by default by baseball and the way it works. They'll be easier to win a championship than the Cavs. Just by the way baseball works. Because here's what I always tell people: the Indians find pitchers like they turn pitchers over, like they find them. They could be these pitchers be 27, come from another system, all of a sudden Cy Young. I don't understand it. They get them. I'll give them that. They get pitchers 3-4 at a time, and they rehabilitate them, or they keep them and they find them. They get rotation guys. The Indians stay with pitchers. I'll give them that. And if you can get that, you can work with them. Now the Cavs, I know they have to hit a home run. What do you think the Cavs are in their progression in 5 years?
I think the Cavs are. I look at the Cavs right now and compare it to the last rebuild when LeBron left. They're way ahead of schedule before where they were. I mean, and we get back and forth between. I think bottom line, I think they're much further along and closer than maybe you do. I think they're not as far.
Even with, I mean, they had Kyrie, man. They had Kyrie.
And Colin is a better player.
Whoa. You believe now? You believe?
Yeah.
That Colin Sexton is a better player than Kyrie Irving.
Look at the stats.
But you know, you got to look at the player too. And
the production.
In your heart of hearts, do you believe that?
Yes.
When you look at that player, based on
Kyrie, you can make a case that Kyrie is more talented.
Okay. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, he's more talented, but the production says something else.
If you I'll put it to you like this. Kyrie has another level. Like Kyrie has that thing where it's like, oh, Kyrie went to another level. Oh goodness, we can't stop him.
Right.
He just got 50 again.
Yeah.
Again, like it's one of them things where even if he playing against LeBron's like, okay, if Kyrie want to get 50 today, he's one of the most elite guys we've ever seen. And sometimes it's like Kyrie gets on my nerves. But here's what I'm gonna say about Colin Sexton. I'm gonna tell you, and I told people this last year. Colin Sexton is one of them guys who, if you keep counting him out, all he does is just keep getting better. He just because he's one of them dudes that Kyrie has more talent, but Colin Sexton's willpower, he just keeps getting better. I'm gonna work. You ain't gonna see me in the club. I'm just working. I'm doing my thing. What do you think Darius Garland's ceiling is? Because to me, the Cavs are only as good as that guy. I'm just be honest. I know what Jared Allen is. What is that guy? Because if that guy is going to tell me whether the Cavs are good or the rebuild works or not.
The guy who I compare him to is, some people say Kemba Walker. The guy for me is Malcolm Brogdon.
I kind of see that. I kind of see that. Because Malcolm Brogdon is like, all right, is he going to do something? Or like, Brogdon can do something, or is he? To me, I was hoping he was like Kyle Lowry.
I can see Kyle. I mean, I think it's better, instead of making a comparison per person, I think he's going to be that 19 to 21 point guy, 6, 7 assists, and just be a good ball player. He's just going to be a damn good ball player. There's just no other way around it. He's going to be a good ball player. I think Colin Sexton is one step away, because let's just say he's 25-5 at the end of the year. If he takes another step, if you get some outside shooting and get Kevin Love and get some outside, he's one step away from being that 28 to 30 point guy, 6 assist guy. I've never seen a guy who can start off 1 of 6 or 0 out of 6, and then by the end of the game, he got his 25 to 27, 10 out of 18. And
I'll give you this, Hiram. I don't understand the thought process of people saying he shoot too much. I'm like, who else is shooting?
Right.
Like who else is getting buckets? Like who's giving buckets? Like like, what do you like? Here's the scary part for me. I don't know about Ofcoure. I don't know. He scares me. He scares me to death, because here's the thing. I think he's 6'4". I think he doesn't. I think he's 6'4". I'm scared about his offensive game. He looks like Alonzo G. He looks like Alonzo G's game, where it's like, oh, I'm athletic, kinda. I don't know, man. And he's a top 5 pick, and I need a top 5 pick to be good, really good. And I don't know if he's good.
But here's the thing. Remember the last rebuild when LeBron left? they got a guy who was similar to Isaac Okoro. He did score. They took him in the top 5.
You talk about Tristan Thompson.
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
I
knew
guy,
you was going there. I knew.
He's this era's version of Tristan Thompson.
Oh, boy. If he could play all them games in a row and he could be scrappy and I'll tell you what, Tristan Thompson, if he could turn out to be Tristan Thompson, but a 3.
Yes.
They should show him his tape because Tristan Thompson helped beat the Golden State Warriors. He got $85 million for playing hard and playing defense.
Well, the thing is that when Tristan Thompson came out, people said they didn't know anything about Tristan Thompson at Texas. Oh, he doesn't score. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. And Chris Grant, who was the general manager at the time, said, look, we didn't get him to score. His offensive rebounding, his being able to switch, his defense, his leadership, his tangibles and intangibles made him worthy of a top 5 pick. I'm saying that Isaac Okoro, he's going to give you more offense than what he's doing now. He's never going to be no juggernaut, but he's going to be this version with his defense, his ability to shut down, or they used to say, turn off the water at Auburn, his ability to guard 1s, 2s, and 3s, and sometimes even 4s. You need those type of guys. And a lot of people don't want to hear that and calling them a bust and this, that, and the other. The same thing with Tristan Thompson, man. It's the same exact thing. Man. The thing that irritates me is trying to pit Garland versus Sexton against one another, and I don't like that at all by the fans and the media around here.
Man, you need both. I don't understand. They need both of them. I mean, what you gonna trade? Right. I don't know.
Well, they're trying to say that the backcourt is too small. Colin Sexton is 6'2". If he was 6'4", this wouldn't even be in discussion. I mean, small backcourts do work. Whether you don't agree with it, that's fine. But they have, and they still do work.
Listen, this is what, Hiram. This is why you talk a good game, man. They gonna make this is why they you be a good GM. You talk people out of stuff. You done got everybody off their point. You didn't talk us into the 6'2" backcourt. You told me Isaac Okoro good. You done made me feel better about the Indians farm team that they parading around as a major league team. You out here being good. Now all you got to do is tell me about these draft picks. Now what you gonna do with this pick for the Browns? Now I'm telling them like this. I would move up. I'll tell you what. I think there's a lot of people. I think there's gonna be some people that's gonna get thirsty for a quarterback. I think it's going to be a couple people get thirsty for a receiver. I think some people going to jump up, and I think it's going to be some edge rushers and people sitting right there waiting for you to get that at a position you didn't think you was going to get. What would you do with this pick for the Browns at 26?
Now, I haven't been following the draft this year, but I do know some players, and some guys have caught my eye. Now, my understanding is I don't believe in doing this stuff, but some of the guys on Twitter have gone through the Browns roster and they were saying that I don't see 9 draft picks making this team. If the Browns come to that conclusion, they should either move up to get a ball player or they should move their picks until next year or whenever. So whatever conclusion whatever they decide. Now, there are some ball players. I'm one of those old school guys because I've watched football for forever, man. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. I don't need PFF to think for me. I don't need any of that. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. A good pass rush trumps a good pass defense.
All day.
Period.
Because you can't touch nobody. You can't touch nothing.
Not only that, but the quarterback is going to be so worried about getting the ball out. The wide receivers got to shorten their routes. You can sit on certain routes. You can rotate.
Passes. There's all kind of stuff as a defensive end you can do to affect the quarterback. There's everything, right?
Exactly.
Holding penalties, all that.
Yeah.
False starts.
You got to keep extra blockers in. You remember when they had Lawrence Taylor? How they had to get a offensive tackle, a tight end, and a running back to try to.
Lawrence Taylor had the whole doggone bench. They had a coach over there sitting over there talking. Lawrence Taylor wrecked the whole damn. Please, listen. They had two people in the route after Lawrence Taylor.
Exactly.
And they was running West Coast back then. West Coast only had 5-yard routes.
Right. They had the Giants had no offense. That defense won Super Bowl. But bottom line is, a great pass rush will always mask a mediocre. I'm not saying get a bad pass defense, but you don't need a superb pass defense in order to have a great defense.
I believe. So what you're saying is, if they got a guy up there, if they got somebody on their board that is a supreme pass rusher, your idea is to take them.
Yeah. And I'm not mad if they get up and get a cornerback, but if you ask me, I gotta have that pass rush. That pass rush that changes everything right there, man. That right there. And I'm not. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I've seen. You remember when the Giants had
you just about to say they had Tuck.
They had Strahan,
OCU Umanura.
They had their secondary was weak.
Terrible. They was going against Randy Moss.
Right.
Going against Moss. Right. He had like 20 touchdowns that year.
And they went up against Aaron Rodgers and all those guys and Romo and
that team was a wild card. They played three road games.
Yeah. And still dogged everybody.
They had three. And I was like, man, and Justin Tucker was playing at about 285 tops. And they had him at 3 technique. And I said, man, he's whooping everybody. Yeah. And I said they couldn't get the ball off. They couldn't get the ball off.
Brady didn't know what the hell was going on. They didn't know what
boy, I said, I hope they was rushing. And the crazy part was they was rushing four.
Didn't even have to blitz.
I said, listen, if I can get anything close to that was I said, oh, listen, if anybody, but it's hard to duplicate.
It is.
It's very hard to duplicate because it's very difficult to get a 3 technique that can, Tampa Bay just did it a little bit. Tampa Bay just really, they did the same thing. Tampa Bay just really did the same thing because, you had Ndamukong Suh. They had the guys on the outside. They kind of did the same thing, but it's hard to do. But
they had a good secondary too. I won't take that away. They had a good secondary
and really good fast linebackers.
Yes, they did. They did. But you can guarantee me the guy who I want is the dude from Penn State.
Which one of you talk about? You talk about the dude that ran a 4.38 or the linebacker that ran a 4.4.
The DN. That's who I want.
That guy. Here's the thing. What kind of program do they got? Because my brother and them wanted the number 11 guy. I keep forgetting his name.
Yeah, Parsons.
Michael Parsons. They wanted him, and I kept being like, man, let me see what this. I knew he was going to run fast. He ran a 4.4, and then they said, but they got another guy who ran a 4.38, and I said, you mean Parsons? They said no. He's a defensive end. He's only played football like 3 years or something. I said, man, oh man. Now there's that Collins kid keeps showing up. The Xavier Collins guy that's 6'5".
I like him.
I like him too. I'm excited. I'm excited about the fact that the Browns actually, for the first time, are in a position where they've done enough where they can legitimately draft a best available guy, and I wouldn't
bring them along slowly,
and do what they need to do.
Yeah, and they don't need to rush him, and we got to throw him in there right away. You don't need to do that.
Now here's the thing: do you legitimately believe and we gonna give you this before we let you get out of here, man.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to chop this up and put this. I got to put this interview out solo. You can't even be on GBUSH Live. We just got to put this out solo and just have this as a standalone. This, you crazy, man. So with these Browns, right? You know, they're 11-5. They got an extra game this year. Now, we was excited the 1 year they finally got OBJ, and you know, we was excited. It was Freddie Kitchens' first year. When you're looking at this team, I've been asking everybody that come on, you know, where do you got them in the AFC? I'm not talking about NFC because I care less about that. You know, we'll see them if we trying to get to the Super Bowl. First of all, do you think they're a legitimate Super Bowl challenger or candidate? And two, where do you have them in the pecking order of the AFC?
Question number one. Absolutely, they're a Super Bowl contender. That's the good news.
Mm-hmm.
The bad news is you got about 7 other teams that are just as good, or will be just as good after the draft. So theoretically,
I agree.
I can't say they're better than Buffalo. I thought they were better than Buffalo this year.
Yeah, I did. I
think
too.
they would have beat Buffalo.
I think they played the Chiefs the best. I think they played the Chiefs the best.
Absolutely. The Chiefs deep down inside were like, I really don't want to play the Browns. The Browns blew that game.
They had, listen, that's why I want that pass rusher the most. You can, that 3rd and 14, everybody knows. Everybody knows. That hurt my soul. They know if they get off the field right there, everybody knows the Browns go down there and score. I know they scored. That game, we let them off the hook. I feel like I'm Denny Green every time I see it. We let them off the hook.
And I say this. I'm a big Kevin Stefanski fan. He blew that game in the first half. Hey. There's no way you run the ball 3 times in the first half, GBUSH.
I said it. I said it.
And then the last touchdown they had, GBUSH, they ran the ball right down their throat. You should have been doing that the whole game.
Let him off the hook. Let him off the hook. Like, it was like I'm saying to him, I'm looking at him, I'm looking for that game. I'm looking for that Cowboys game plan. Right. I'm looking for, you know what the Browns was doing. The Browns was steadfast, a steady diet. The Browns you could stop the Browns for 3 quarters and they would still hand the ball off.
Right.
Man, I was like, bro, we got them. And the Honey Badger, I mean, he was making plays in the passing game, but I said, they can't stop the run.
They can't stop the run.
They can't stop the run. We got them.
And if you looked at the defensive line, they knew, what the hell is going on? We can't stop these guys. You should have been doing that all game long.
When Patrick Mahomes went out that football game, I said, they are finished.
We're going to the Super Bowl.
We going to the because I was sitting there thinking, we're going to this Super Bowl. Then Henny came in through that interception. I said, he threw us. These boys is done. These boys is finished.
Yeah.
Man, we let them off the hook.
We let them off the hook.
We let them off the hook.
I was so Andre not got me. I said we were watching the Tampa Bay New Orleans game. I said Ronald Jones is better than Nick Chubb, and Andre not jumped on me. I was so mad.
Man, you know what? And I was so upset. I refused to watch the Buffalo and Kansas City game.
Yeah, refused.
I didn't watch it. I was like, man, you know, Kansas City gonna win this game, and I'm not even gonna look at this and watch this because Buffalo was one-dimensional. All they was doing is throwing the ball, and they was throwing it to Stephon Diggs. I'm not worried about none of that. I think now coming up this year, I still think the Browns still have to figure out the Lamar Jackson thing.
Yes.
We got to figure out why you're going to let him run for 130 yards again every game. We got to figure that out.
I think they figured it out from the standpoint, from a personnel point of view. They were too slow. The linebackers were too slow in the secondary. You too slow in the secondary. And too unskilled. Too slow in the back seven.
Even Olivier Vernon he's great at the run, but even as far as quick twitch, as far as I'm gonna chase you from sideline to sideline, no, that's not his game.
That's not his game.
That's not his game.
We have guys like Sendejo and BJ Goodson. I like Goodson. Sendejo wasn't as bad as we said. But the problem was that you were too slow and you just weren't good enough in the back seven. You just weren't.
I also think if you take a look at it, I think the Chargers will be good this year. I think the Chargers will be good this year. I also think
they got major offensive line problems, man. And you never know when a new staff coming in, what's going to happen. I mean, Stefanski was a different breed because his system, he's a system. I mean, that system that he put in is just tailor-made for what the Browns have. When the new staff comes in and Justin Herbert looked big, he's better than what I thought he would be.
I thought he was going to be terrible. I thought he was going to. I'm thinking
Me too.
He has 3 years. They'll be talking about him being out, and I think he's Sam Darnold with a better arm. I thought he was out of here, and he came in and was. I'm like, okay. I'm like, whew, he's putting them yards. I look at it. I look at it from a perspective of. I think the Browns have a couple of things that they got to do, and you look at it. There's a few teams that I really think that you got to take a look at. You got to take a look at the Bills. They'll be there. The Ravens will still be there. But you also got to take a look at the Colts. Now, if Wentz can just be Wentz, like the Wentz of a couple years ago, it ain't got to be MVP Wentz. They got running backs. They'll get their offensive lineman back. They're going to run a system. You know what they do. They got that defense
is good.
They give up nothing. I went back and watched the Browns game. I'm like, man, these dudes are giving up nothing.
Yeah.
They got defenders. They'll get guys back from injury. I think they'll be good. So, like you said, you're 17.
What about Miami?
If Tua
got
that's the only thing.
Yeah.
If they'll figure out, do they need a receiver? Do they need another receiver? How's that going to work out? But I like their defense, and I like Flores.
I bet you they're kicking themselves they didn't take Herbert instead of Tua. I'm glad they did.
You have him. That's a whole nother game plan.
Yeah.
That's because Tua is, to me, he looked like. You ever see him back there? You just think something gonna go wrong. You ever see a quarterback? You be like, he gonna drop this ball. He gonna throw a pig.
Right.
You feel like something happening. And for me, I'll say this: I'm not going to bury the Steelers. I'm not going to bury them yet, because I ain't seen the Steelers win just 4 games in a long time. Right. Until they just win 4 games on me, I seen them win 8 games with Duck Hodges. You ain't gonna give me that. So
they still got that defense. They still got a starting defense.
They still got that. They still got that. So what are you saying? So are you predicting, before we let you go? You got to be on the record. You got to be on the record. Are you saying the Browns out and out win this division, and do they at least do what they did last year and win a playoff game?
As of right now, I say yes, but I always say, this is what I personally do. After this month, I don't want to see an NFL roster until mid-June, early July. I need to get that. I need to get a different perspective. I need to get the emotions and get the, oh, you got this guy, oh, I didn't realize you got this guy. He's like KJ Wright, good ball player. Still unsigned, and somebody might sign and pick him up. I'm like, oh, okay. I need to get that. I need to get away from it for a while and then revisit it. But as of right now, I would say the Browns and the Ravens are going to be battling it out for the division. And the Steelers are going to take a step or 2 back to rebuild, a quick rebuild. one last thing. I'm surprised that the Steelers didn't make a play for Sam Darnold to be the successor to Ben Roethlisberger. He's almost done. He's almost done.
I was surprised that they were not in the mix for some of these other quarterbacks. Either Steelers, for me, moving around, trying to position themselves to get in the top 10, to get one of the quarterbacks, or being in the mix to trade for a quarterback.
Right.
So because for me, I'm wondering, like, okay, you got Mason on the roster, you got what's his name? Kid from Ohio State.
They're high on Mason. Reportedly, they're grooming Mason as the guy that's going to succeed.
Well, good luck with that.
Good luck with that. That's what I say. They want to be stubborn enough, and GB, they haven't drafted as well as they should have over the past couple of years.
I actually will say this: they have drafted horribly. They haven't hit on any guys in the secondary.
No,
they last guy they hit up front was TJ Watt, yeah. And they have not. Think about it. They were always able to get it back. They were always able to get it from anywhere.
Good point.
And they Counter hasn't been a dude. You know, they had Fast Willie Parker. They had all kind of guys back in the day. Yeah, they ain't been able to hit those guys.
They haven't been drafted all that well. But I mean, when they took a guy who PFF said was a 5th round pick, and Trey Edmonds, and said that and they took him in, and now they talk about not even renewing him anymore. I mean, he can't even get on the field.
You know, they got the receivers. They got receivers.
They got receivers.
So here's the thing. My thought process is this: if you got the receivers that they got, because let's keep it real, if you want to look at Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster and the other Deontay Thomas, if those three, if you looking at them, and they even got what's the name, the tight end, what's his name,
from the Colts, the Colts.
What's his name?
What was the number 1 pick for the Lions? I forget his name.
Man, it start Ebron.
Yeah, Eric Ebron.
If you got all of them, why would you not be looking for a quarterback? You're supposed to say, I need me something. If you can get them guys the ball, stop it. But you know what? I'm not going to give you no advice to Steelers. Go ahead and do what you need to. I need you.
And you need a quarterback with an arm. But let me ask you this one other. What in the hell is John Gruden doing up in Los Angeles? They got 6 expensive DNs, GB. They got let me run it down to you. They got old boy Chris Smith from Cleveland, Carl Nassib, Yannick Ngakoue. They got Max Crosby. They got Cleveland Farrell, and they got Arden Key.
And why would you? Here's the thing. Why would you? First of all, why would you even? I don't even know why they drafted Cleveland Farrell for. They drafted him 4th overall.
Yes,
teachers I've ever seen.
Yes,
he wasn't even the guy for that Clemson team. Then you get Carl Nassib. You got Carl Nassib, like he was like that guy. Chris Smith, like you got. Do you think this is Madden? Listen, Don Gruden, man, time to pass him by, man. It's time to pass you by. You drafted Ruggs. They about to cut Ruggs. I'm gonna tell you what.
They about to cut women.
Then they had, who's the guy that they got from Philadelphia, Aguilar. They had Nelson Aguilar. He had a breakout year last year. And they was like, oh, we're not signing you because they drafted Ruggs. We can't sign you, bro. And it's like, then they was like, at one point in time, they was like, well, we cutting Derek. We about to get rid of Derek Carr. And I'm like,
Marcus Mariota.
Yeah. I was like, but I never quite understood the first thing you did was come in and get rid of Amari Cooper and like,
right.
you had, what's that played for the Bears now? What's his name? Khalil Mack. So you had Khalil Mack and you had Amari Cooper. All of a sudden, you come in and say, I'm getting rid of Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper.
Yep.
So I can draft
my guys.
You draft Cleveland Farrell? He'll never be better than Amari Cooper. He'll never be better than Khalil Mack, ever.
Wait a minute, and they fired the general manager who was drafted well, and was drafted decently at least.
They was on the upswing.
Right.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's the John Dorsey, the school of thinking of, you're not my guy. If I didn't draft you, I don't want you.
You ain't good. Why would you say why would you do that? Like, it's crazy. Like, if I inherited, that's like saying I inherited Myles Garrett.
Right.
You ain't on my I inherited Nick Chubb. I'm cool.
Right.
You trade him for a first round pick just so you can get no.
That's what they do. That's because their egos are so big that they don't want to share they don't want that last general manager, that last personnel guy to be like, oh, I helped win that Super Bowl. You know, I don't want to share the limelight with I don't want to share that with anybody. That's their thinking.
You know what, so crazy, man. And I'm gonna let you we keep saying one more thing.
Right.
I'm gonna let you go on this one, man.
Okay.
Does Hugh Jackson ever work in the NFL again?
He should. And I let me preface my statement like this, G. I remember talking to my buddy Lane. When they fired Mike Pettin, me and my boy Lane, we talked about the pros and cons of hiring Hugh Jackson till 3:00 in the morning. Hugh Jackson is a good coach, and I would contend he's a good head coach. He sticks his foot in his mouth a lot. He does some things to rub people the wrong way a lot. He did some things in Cleveland I did not like. Okay, but at the end of the Bill Belichick, and I'm not saying he's Bill Belichick. Okay, Bill Belichick did some things that I didn't like. Bill Belichick rubbed some people the wrong way. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, BGB, we in Cleveland got to stop this crap about he got to be, good to the people. Only thing I give a about, are you winning games or at the very least getting the most out of your talent?
Right.
And okay, and I'm gonna say this. We all knew when Sashi Brown and Paul DePodesta, they said, look, we are a 4-12 team. We got the oldest team in the NFL. We're gonna gut, they pretty much said we're gonna gut this thing all the way for 2 years. It's gonna get worse. His specific words were, we're gonna get worse before we get better.
Right.
And it might take a couple of years. The problem was when the owner started to get heat, that's when he started throwing everybody over the boat he started getting heat. He fired Sashi, and D. Haslam came out and said, look, he was doing his job. He did exactly what he said he was going to do. It was just too much for our fans to accept that. We couldn't, we had to change. That was there. And Hugh Jackson was a product of that.
So let me ask you this. I don't think he did himself favors by, how crazy it is. I said this before. I'm on record saying, you know how hard and difficult it is just for African Americans to get a job.
Absolutely.
One time.
Absolutely.
That's super facts. But when you come out and you expose, even if he did get that contract, right? When he said, yo, they gave me a contract, but they told me not to say nothing about it. So you know how crazy political the game is when you come out and expose that. At this point, he probably feel like he ain't got nothing to lose.
Exactly.
He probably feeling, I ain't got nothing to lose. I ain't got a job now anyway. And it's been 2 years. Do you believe it would be better suited for him to just go and say, all right, let me go take a college gig. Let me take a college coordinator gig Because one thing that I won't ever take away from Hugh Jackson is this. Contrary to what people want to say, Hugh Jackson got a great offensive mind.
Absolutely.
And if you want to go, if you don't think so, go back and watch the Cincinnati Bengals when they came to Cleveland and beat the Browns like 30-something to nothing.
Right.
Like, go back and watch what he did against the Browns. Go back and watch some of those teams with the Raiders. Like, he got a good mind. So if he goes to a college and says, all right, I'm going to go down here, I'm going to get me go to a team with a quarterback I like and put up points, he's going to get an opportunity. If not getting a head coach job in college, he could be back in the league in like 2 years.
I agree.
Easy money.
I think people associating him with the 1-31 when, and it's eating at him. I mean, every time, people laughing at him and making jokes. And I mean, it's eating at him. And it would eat at me because I inherited a situation that wasn't good. I was told one thing, and the owner double-crossed me. And in the process, we're losing game. You gave me an expansion team. You gave me the worst quarterback play in NFL history on top of that.
It was rough. It was crazy.
And then you want to fire me. You bring in this guy who's an egomaniac. They sabotaging me. You gave me an offensive coordinator who I didn't want. You turned the quarterback against me. You getting the owner to try to fire me, every other week when we lose a close game. And I found out some things, G. Bush, about that whole thing. The owners were okay with Hugh Jackson. What Dorsey was doing, he was working it to the point where what got them was, he said, look, if you don't fire him now, it's going to hurt Baker Mayfield. That's when they fired Hugh Jackson. And here's the thing. When they fired Hugh, his idea was to put Todd Haley, and somebody, I think it was Paul D that said it. They knew they were sabotaging. Paul D was like, we got to fire Haley. There's no way we're going to look good on this. No way. Because they were sabotaging him from the beginning.
So do you think, let me ask you this. Do you believe that if they started Baker Mayfield from 21 Jump Street, that could have helped save his job?
I think no. I think the plan was right into getting Tyrod Taylor that job. I had no problem with that. The thing that I would have did was, if I were in Hugh Jackson's part and I wasn't satisfied, the guy who really screwed him was Todd Haley. Remember when he told him, look, Nick Chubb can run. Nick Chubb should be starting.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that game against the Raiders when he came out after the game, after they lost that heartbreaking game? He said he should be starting. He could score from a mile away. And then Ty Haley the next game said, no, we ain't gonna start because he doesn't block very well. What in the hell is Nick Chubb blocking in it? You want him? What is he blocking? Has he blocked anybody since Ty Haley has been here? Been gone?
No.
Okay.
He's on the block. He's
GB, my whole point was they were sabotaging you.
And I think Hugh Jackson came out and said one of his, now here's some people that will give pushback will say whose decision was it to hire Ty Haley?
John Dorsey.
Hugh Jackson said that, listen, one of the worst decisions I made was hiring Todd Haley. He said that in an interview. He said,
okay,
that was one of the worst decisions I could ever make. Right. Now, that makes it
can I preface something that I do know? Can I just tell you this?
All right.
He wanted to fire Todd Haley in training camp.
But they wouldn't let him?
They wouldn't let him.
Okay.
He wanted to fire Ty. He went to ownership and wanted to fire Ty Haley 2 or 3 times. They were jousting each other. All the time, GB. You remember that Philly game when it was game 3, I think, and they had 1st and goal at the 1, and Ty Haley ran it. It was passed the ball 4 times. I mean,
everybody remembers that.
Yeah, I mean, stuff. He wanted to fire Todd Haley in training camp. I do know that for sure. Okay, I'm just saying that they, John, and let me just tell you this before I go. You remember Sam Rutigliano? Well, they did an interview with Todd Haley. He admitted that he and Dorsey had hitched a plan at the beginning, and when they fired you, that he was going to be the head coaching job. And then he got such pushback. He came out about a week later and said, "No, I didn't want to be the head coach. Oh, it wasn't even like that."
I remember that. I remember hearing that.
And he hasn't gotten the job since.
Now that is damning, because Todd Haley has not sniffed a job since that too.
No, he hasn't.
He's not sniffed. We haven't heard his name. We have not seen Todd Haley. We have not peeped him at all.
Head coaches were like, "Oh, you did that? Oh, you think I'm gonna bring you in here? Oh, hell no."
That was super facts. I will give you that. You know what, Hiram, man? It's been a blast, man.
Yes,
it's been fun to talk, man. I really appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir.
And so, you know, throw out you on Twitter all the time. Throw out where you at so we can know where they can get at you and talk and conversate on Twitter and get it going with you on this sports thing, man.
Yeah, I don't even know my Twitter handle.
That's crazy.
Hiram Boy. And Hiram Boy. That's about it.
All right, man. I appreciate you, man, for stopping by, man. And as always, man, salute to you and what you bring to the sports talk industry, man. I appreciate you.
All right. Have a good one now. Bye-bye.
All right, man.